Hello, everybody. It's Bruce here from Biz on Capital Corporation. Thank you for coming to today's webinar event. Our panel, we have five really top-notch CFOs to discuss some of the issues they're facing regarding COVID-19. So I thought what we'd do first is just go around the panel and just take a moment for everybody to introduce themselves. We'll go from clockwise. Carrie?
Sure, I'm Carrie Boucher, and I'm from Ontario Driving Gear. We are most well known for producing the recreational vehicle, the Argo. We're about 100 million in revenue and about 350 employees.
Fabulous. Brenda?
Hi, Brenda Gardner. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Financial Officer from the Toronto Region Board of Trade. We're a member-based organization for those of you that don't know us, but I think most people do know us. We have about 100 employees and excited to be here.
Fabulous. Thank you. Georgina?
Hi, Georgina Casavas. I'm the Chief Financial and Risk Officer of Nuclear Waste Management Organization. We're about a $150 million operation, about 180 employees, and our mandate is to implement Canada's plan for the safe long-term storage of nuclear fuel waste.
Cuba. Priyal?
Sure, Priyal Thakrar. I'm the Chief Financial Officer and EVP of Lending for Infrastructure Ontario. We're about 600 people, mostly in Toronto, and really focused on delivery of large-scale capital projects and managing real estate for the Ontario government.
Super. And Eugene?
Morning, Eugene Dynasty. I'm the CFO for a company called Love Good Fats. It's a $60 million business in the CPG consumer products space. Our products are health snack food products, keto based. Do about 2/3 of our business in Canada, 1/3 in the United States. So rapidly growing business, about 30, 40 employees.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. Okay, so Carrie, let's go back to you. Let's go through the discussion, and I'm going to encourage everybody to chime in as at will. Keep it fairly easy going, fluid, fairly loose. Let's try a little fun, in these times. So Carrie, how has the COVID-19 epidemic affected your company, your team, and specifically in your accounting, finance, and your area, even your people?
Yeah, so we've had to make some cuts in some areas of the business and do some layoffs, which has been challenging and tough decisions, but we're able to hopefully bring some of those people back shortly. From a finance team perspective, we've made the option for people who can to work at home, and they are coming in to pick up their paperwork or do whatever they need to do. There are some of us that are still coming in because we have lots of space so we can keep our distancing. But it's definitely been challenging. People, though, I found have really stepped up. We have some that have taken on extra duties for us and to help make the transition go fairly smoothly. So I would say our team has made me pretty proud of what they've done and helping support the business as it changes on a daily basis. Sometimes we're changing changing discussions on production schedules, etc. So they've been great.
Is there something that specifically stands out in terms of a change you had to make? Is there one or two things that really, really stand out in terms of a change that took place?
I think that the working from home concept, we have people with young kids, so they're trying to balance that at home. Just trying to balance everybody's work life in terms of being able to support what's needed at home right now has been challenging. So we're not working 8 to 5. Everybody's working different hours. I have somebody who works at 6 in the morning and then she homeschools her kids. So we just need to be more flexible with schedules and
Cool.
Availability.
All right. And if you had some advice to give to other CFOs of what you've learned in the last, I'm looking at this as the last month, especially the last 3 weeks. Any specific pieces of advice you want to put out there that can be useful to others?
You can't have a goal. You gotta every day it's changing. Every circumstance is changing. You have to be flexible and fluid with it, and particularly the operational impact of it. So that's the biggest changes we've had.
Wonderful, wonderful. I noticed that too. The goal is the day.
Exactly, it's to get through the day.
Because it's just you can't predict anything. You know what I mean? Okay, Brenda.
Yeah.
How has COVID-19 again affected your area, the Board of Trade, your department, your people? How has it impacted?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting how quickly we've transitioned to the work from home. We were very much a high touch environment, meaning that we had a lot of members, a lot of events, a lot of our ministers, politicians who would attend at our podium and be in our space. And so when we had to go to work from home, because we were classed as a non-essential business, we really were wondering how would this work? And actually the transition has been fairly smooth because of technology. We were very lucky. We had just adopted the Zoom technology. So we were able to transition quickly. And we were talking earlier about, adapting to backgrounds and being in the right place and correctly lit and making sure that you're not seeing, everyone's ceiling and getting their camera angles right. In terms of the team itself, we've been very lucky. We've managed so far anyway to keep everyone on staff. We haven't had to lay people off. And that's mainly because we've been able to transition a lot of the people that were, let's say, our events team to putting on webcasts and webinars. And also that we were a fairly small, tight team anyway. So a lot of the advocacy work that we do, for example, is even more important now, trying to get the message from the 3 levels of government, from our members to them about what's really important, how quickly they need to move, how much more quickly they need to move. And for anyone who's interested, we did launch a support portal. It's called supportbusiness.bot.com. Yep. And that gives you all of the latest breaking news from the various levels of government. And we have a live chat function. So let's say you're a small business and you need to know if a certain program works for you, or better still, how do you apply for it, which is what I think most people are struggling with. They get announced, but no one knows how to apply. There are people at the end of the chatbot there that can actually walk you through the process. In terms of accounting and finance team, we were very lucky. We hold most of our backup material in PDF format anyway. We'd scanned and had everything up there, and our year end was March 31st. So for the first time in my career, we are trying to do a fully remote audit. So starting on Monday, we have our auditors coming in and they're using a portal. We're using everything that we've got in terms of technology. So that's going to be very interesting to see kind of how we get through both an audit and an AGM remotely. Interesting,
Andrew. And what specific pieces of advice would you want to put out there to other senior financial executives that
yeah, I mean, the first one really, because I think we all did it, was don't panic. I mean, this is unprecedented, it's uncharted, but don't panic. I got a great piece of advice from a sage, older accountant who's now retired, and his advice to me, because he went through the 2008 meltdown as a CFO, don't over forecast. So the business will tend to come to you and say, the world is ending, it's all falling apart. What will our revenue look like? And what will it look like in 4 months, in a year, in 2 years? As accountants, we know you can only base your forecasts on some version of reality. Correct. So you can forecast your way out of business if you're not careful. So I try to be very much that steady rudder that says, look, here's what I can tell you about the next 2 months, for example, based on what I know. And here's what I can tell you in a couple of scenarios for the next 6 months. And then you've really got to settle people down and say, we really don't know what the post-COVID world looks like, but we can do a lot of modeling around what a recovery or rebound position might be. Yeah. So the advice would be
every week. Maybe it changes the model.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you. Okay, Georgina, how has COVID-19 impacted your department and your accounting and finance and your company and your team?
Well, overall for our company, we were very lucky. We invested heavily in technology over the last 2 years, got rid of a lot of paper-based systems, and made sure we had online video and Teams working. So we were able to go fully virtual as a company on Monday the 16th, notifying employees about 3:30 on Friday the 13th as the crisis got more intense. So from a team point of view, we had to focus on what is it that's going to get in the way of working at home. And frankly, we weren't 100% EFT. We are concerned about paying our vendors. So for everybody out there who likes to be paid. So we had to put things in place to ensure we could get everybody onto EFT, or frankly, backup check runs. And we're doing still some manual check signing because we do want to keep the economy moving and going. From an organization point of view, virtual is a challenge in that we have to, and I think that was just mentioned about audit processes, we have technical processes. We've had to shut down a lot of field operations. So we're looking for a site that a community will agree to for our deep geological repository. So we've had to shut down borehole drilling, some of our safety work, very sensitive to our municipal and Indigenous communities, not to put too much pressure on them because we simply aren't physically going to go anywhere and cause our communities to be concerned. So internally, everybody's had to figure out, how do you adjust your work for virtual? Can you do verifications now via video? Are there different ways of doing it rather than physical? And that'll be for our audits. Our pension audit is happening, ISO audit is happening, and like I said, our technical. So it's been very, very interesting to watch everybody make these adjustments. At the same time, pressure on my team in terms of, we're in our initial stages of 5-year business planning. And I think I'd like to comment earlier, no, we can't forecast. We don't know.
It's 5 months.
But we are going to have to say something to the board. So our board meeting was deferred, but instead it turned into a 1-hour meeting to talk about what are we doing. It's important to have the board updated, make sure the board is supportive of our actions, and also for the board to still be able to discharge their governance. They have, and they have to do that in a crisis, and they have to make sure we're doing the right things. So we really, I'd say, have to work in partnership with the board. And then I'll say, from an executive team, we immediately instituted meetings, and that included Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, to look at what are the immediate issues of working at home. There's mental health, there's physical health, ergonomic issues. Then the governance issues. How do you do governance overrides? Because we don't want to end up in a position that we essentially are non-compliant in all our policies, as that doesn't work very well in a heavily governed organization that is also ISO registered. So we meet daily, and we've been making as quick decisions as possible, and where decisions take a little bit longer, we've moved things into a sustainability team that has a whole series of tasks, as well as are looking at a recovery team. And one of the big issues that came up in discussion was, what are we learning? How can we take these learnings to the post-COVID phase? Because I don't think things are ever going to be the same. So we've started documenting our learnings, and it was very interesting. That was one of the key things the board came up with. What are you learning now, and how are you documenting, and how are you going to use it in the future?
Interesting. So what's the one piece that you can share, one or two pieces that you can share with the finance community, so they can get a takeaway from what you've learned?
I'd say work at the executive level team or director level team, whatever level you are, work with your colleagues, stay on top of things. This has to be done daily. You've got to look at issues daily and be really flexible. Look at your fact base and make the best decisions you can. Your employees are counting on you. Our communities are counting on us, our outside stakeholders. And so we have an obligation to just be really creative every day and make the best decisions we can.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Georgina. Eugene. Okay.
Good morning.
Okay, so in your area,
go ahead.
with your team in Love Good Fats, how has COVID-19 impacted the organization, accounting, finance, the team? What's happening in your organization?
Well, to what others have said, going to a virtual world has been quite an interesting transition. It's been very workable. We were a rapidly growing company up until the hit of this, but we're in the food space, which is great. Yeah. Problem is, it's probably more of the snack food, and people are going for more of the basics. So we have some challenges. We've been hit from a sales point of view, more from a growth of sales than necessarily decline, but it's forced us to pull back on a number of things. So like marketing initiatives, for instance, are things that were easy to sort of chop, because if you're not having the sales potential out there, this is probably not a good time to invest in marketing initiatives. So, and the marketing team's been pretty good at identifying things that are growth oriented that we cut back at this point and prepare to resume. So we're targeting, we've revised the budget, then revised the latest estimate, then revised the revision to the latest estimate. So it's like a weekly exercise almost. But projecting resumption sort of in Q4, we're on a calendar year, with some ramp up in Q3. So we're planning our business around that. Cash flow is king. Forget about the P&L right now. It's obviously a relationship between the two, but we're trying to make sure we preserve cash to ride out the crisis and make sure we're well financed going into the fourth quarter. And, you know, obviously accessing a lot of the government programs in order to make that happen. I think to a number of points, I think the essence of the communication with shareholders, directors, and lenders is critical at this point. They have a, you know, fear about what is happening in our business and how we're being impacted and how their interests are being affected. So there is a constant level of communication that myself and other senior executives are making to that group to keep them on side, keep them comfortable, keep them confident that you know, we've got our ship in order, that we've, I'd like to use the term, batten down the hatches for the impending storm and the storm we're in, and we'll get through this. And by the time we get through the year, we'll be in better shape to resume our growth.
Okay, just one moment. We have our sixth CFO who's joined. John, can you put your video? You got to put your video on.
Yeah, no, I'm just on the audio bridge, unfortunately, right now.
Okay, that's fine. So we'll be there in a moment. Just a moment. So Eugene, what piece of advice would you give for other financial executives and their teams that what you've learned over the last few weeks?
I think probably the essence is make sure you know your numbers and know your projections, and then convey it to the various stakeholders. I mean, it includes lenders, board members, shareholders, and employees. They're looking for sort of that direction. They see you as being the custodian of the health and welfare of the company, and this is a tough time financially for it. So I think if you know your numbers and you have a sense of where the business is going and what reserves you might have, I think it's important to convey that and use the opportunities to instill confidence in others around you, because they'll work that much harder and they'll be much more confident in themselves.
Thank you so much. Okay, John Gosling is on the audio. John, can you just tell people who you are, and then we'll go through the couple of questions. Yes. Thanks, John.
Yeah. Thanks, Bruce. John Gosling, I'm the CFO at Chorus Entertainment. We're I'd say, medium-sized public company. A lot of TV and radio brands that people would be familiar with. We've got about 50 TV stations in Canada and about 40 radio stations across the country.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so in terms of you and your organization, your team, how has COVID-19 affected things in your accounting and finance area and your team and the people and beyond? How is that? What's happened in your company?
Well, so when, I think one of the other panelists mentioned when everything started to happen around the 13th of March, we were right in the middle of our second quarter end. And, obviously weren't expecting this to happen so quickly. Our teams generally, and in finance in particular, of course, work pretty much on site. So for us to move everybody off site was a pretty big task, but we were able to get ahead of that. We made the decision to order about 1,000 laptops early in this process. So I think we got very lucky, and we moved everybody home and continued the quarter end. We actually accelerated our quarterly reporting because we were in a blackout period and getting a lot of questions from analysts and from shareholders that we really couldn't answer given that we were in blackout. So we decided to go early, and that was a big impact with everybody now at home. But, somebody mentioned their auditors doing a remote audit. We did a remote quarterly review with E&Y, and it worked out fine, actually. So, a lot of this is out of necessity. We're learning every day about how to do things, but it seems to all be working pretty well, I'd say.
That's wonderful. And what tips or what advice would you give to other financial executives that are going through this now? What would you want to share with them?
Well, again, given that we were pretty much an on-site workforce, I think just communicating with the team and then with other stakeholders, so banks, shareholders, analysts, that's just a whole different way of dealing with things now. So where you used to be able to walk around or just have these casual conversations with people, now you've got to make a point of actually being very specific about when you're going to communicate and how you're going to communicate, and also make sure given, again, somebody mentioned people that have small kids at home and people are feeling isolated. How do you make sure that you can kind of keep a pulse on that when you're not seeing everybody every day, because you just don't get a good sense all the time if it's all quiet and nothing really coming back your way.
Got it. Thank you, John. Okay, we're going to pop into the Q&A. We have some time. I'm going to pop into the Q&A. There's some questions there. Okay, so let me pull up some questions here. Here, let me pull up. I'm just pull up some questions. In your opinion, what will be the percentage of fallout for small? Here's one. Someone can ask. In your opinion, what will be the percentage of fallout for small businesses and its recovery time frame? Who would like to answer that? The percentages of fallout for small business. Like, I guess they're asking how quickly will it be turned around?
As I mentioned, Bruce, so the way we're planning it is Q2, calendar Q2 is going to be the worst through June. We're going to see some recovery, but not anywhere near where business expected about 25% down through Q3, but we're expecting a good ramp up in Q4. So that's how we're looking at the numbers and how we see the trend going through the year.
And
Okay.
Bruce, it's Brenda here. We're working on, in the background, a lot of rebound programs. So for example, Team Toronto, where we're seeing is Tourism Toronto and Toronto Global and TFI, which is the Toronto Financial, and ourselves. And we're talking about how we rebound quickly. And there's a lot of great ideas out there. So the main thing I think is it's hard to answer that question, which I think is why we all paused, because we're still not exactly sure how long this is going to go on for. But once it's over, I honestly believe the rebound will be fast and it will be big. So for all small businesses, I think get onto whatever resource channel you can, get what support you can to stay around so that when the rebound comes, you'll be right there at the forefront of it.
Okay. Priya, I'm going to come back to you. I apologize. I may have not let you answer one of the questions. If that's possible, I apologize. This is my first time on a host. So I'm going to be allowing myself to make a few mistakes here. Okay.
Not a problem.
So get back to the question is how has it affected your accounting and finance department in the COVID-19? How has that affected?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, look, we're 30 days into this. It feels like it's been longer, but it's actually very fresh still. And so for finance and accounting, I think a few alluded to this already, but it's just the big adjustment of working from home and being remote. And we're fully remote today, our entire office. And it's actually been really eye-opening how seamless that adjustment's been. And I think a lot of learnings there for the future that we're all going to take away. Like others, we're in the middle of our year end. And so that's a top of mind, activity for us. And, we work closely with our external auditors today. It seems like everything's moving very smoothly towards completion. And so again, really eye-opening for activities that have typically been, very intense and very face-to-face. My sense on our finance team is they've adapted, quite well to this environment.
Yeah.
But I think the real focus for us is to think about what's really important. So as a CFO, I focus on liquidity. I focus on credit risk for our lending portfolio. And like others alluded to, the budget process, we actually stopped it because it's a bit of an exercise that's going to change every day. We want to understand our drivers, we want to understand our business, but trying to put together a 3-year plan is a bit of a futile exercise when it changes every day. And we're slowly starting to pick that up again. And I think we're getting a little more clarity. I don't think anyone knows when the recovery happens, but we know what's going to happen. And so you start to build scenarios. But for us, it's really trying to think about what's really important and focusing on the big stuff. We're a business that's busier than ever today, given the nature of the work we do. And so for us, the biggest challenge is maintaining some semblance of balance. Our work office is now 30 seconds away from our kitchens and the rest of our house. And so it's really hard to draw those lines. And so one thing we're focused on as a team is trying to make sure that we're sort of drawing the line a little bit between personal and business, because people have other priorities. They've got kids at home, they've got other things to think about. The world is changing every day. And we got to make sure we think about those things, or else we're going to burn everybody out.
Thank you. And so what advice, what's the one or two pieces of advice? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think to me, it's think about what's really important to your stakeholders. For our board, what was really important is understanding the risks across our business. That was the first thing we did as an executive team. And I think that helped us really understand sort of financial and operational issues, but it also gave them comfort that we were on top of the right things. And stopping the things that aren't important and really zeroing in on the things that are, and so, thinking about cash flow, thinking about, risk to your balance sheet, and ensuring that you're sustainable for a period of time.
Okay. I'll go back to John. I have a question. You're in the broadcast business, right? And look, broadcast, I believe it's an essential service. People got to keep informed. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, how has that dynamic must have changed dramatically in your business? You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the CBC, who as taxpayers we all pay for, decided pretty early on that they were going to stop doing local news. I think that's changed now, but you know, that put an even greater burden on us because people are watching a lot more television these days, or online news or other things. So we had to make sure that we could keep our news going and also just keep all of our technical infrastructure running. And a lot of that requires people to be in places in person. So, you know, we sent probably 80% of our company home, but there's a bunch of them that are, you're right, they're essential and they need to actually be in the building. Then early on, we had an outbreak. We had a couple of people test positive in one of our main locations. And that obviously threw people completely off. The good news, I think, if there's any good news, well, two things. One, the cases were mild and they've recovered, but also we got a lot of attention from public health to help us to deal with our employees, to help people understand what was happening, and the fact that, you know, just because 2 people are tested positive doesn't mean the building's sick and you have to shut it down. So I think that was a good learning for us early on, is, you know, what to do when someone tests positive, because I think people generally assume, oh, you know, I can't go to work anymore. I mean, I'm going to get sick, and that's really not what happens here. So, you know, that's, you know, the I guess benefit of being a essential services. Some people are still keeping quite busy and helps keep their mind off things. But on the other hand, it's, you know, it's very stressful. So, you know, we're doing the best we can, obviously, to keep people safe, but also to keep people informed.
Thank you. You know, we're coming to close to 9 o'clock. I have one more question. People want to hang around for a couple of minutes. Just one more that we can better. And again, I'm sorry if everybody can get all the questions, but it's just not possible. You know what I mean? There was one really good question I saw regarding fund. Just give me a moment here. It was, the questions come in so rapidly. Somebody asked the question regarding funding. How has it affected funding ability to raise cash and raise capital in this time? Like how is that? How, because these are, you're running big companies. There might be additional funding needs. How is that? What's happened on that side? You know?
Actually, we're in the middle of a process of raising capital. We're finding that from a government point of view, they're very supportive. They seem to be flush with cash. Non-government, I think it's only taking, I mean, we're a rapidly growing company with a great runway ahead of us. And I think that enthusiasm is still there. Investors are seeing this as a bump in the road. So yes, we're having to do far more diligence, analysis, projections, but we're still getting good receptivity for the request for cash to basically pad up the balance sheet so that we're ready when we get into Q4 to resume the growth path that we were on.
Okay, good. And I want to thank everybody for their time and for their input. It was great. I thought it was valuable. And I just want to thank everybody.
Well, thank you, Bruce, for hosting it.
Thank you so much. Any other final words anybody want to say before we sign off? I hope we have a chance to talk. And
I think we're on the other side of the curve right now. So everybody just hang in there. We will have better days ahead.
We will get through this. We persevere. We will get through this. And hopefully we'll come out better than we were when we started. You know, all these learnings. Anyways, take care and have a great day.
Everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.